You open your eyes, and the very first sensation that greets you is a profound aching heaviness. You haven't even moved the covers yet, but your bones feel like lead. You look at the clock. You slept for 7, maybe 8 solid hours. The math says you should be restored. Biology dictates you should be overflowing with morning vitality, ready to command the day. Yet, you feel as though you have spent the entire night hauling heavy stones across an endless desert. I know this silent, solitary agony. You drag yourself to the bathroom mirror, looking into your own tired eyes, silently wondering what is fundamentally wrong with your body. You blame yourself. You think you lack resilience, that your biology is failing, or that you just need another supplement, another sleep hack. But I need you to listen to me very carefully right now. There is absolutely nothing broken inside you. Your biology is not failing. This crushing, invisible exhaustion you carry is not a personal flaw. It is a systemic theft. Think of a device sitting quietly on a nightstand in a pitch-black room. The screen is completely dark. To anyone observing it, it appears to be entirely at rest, powered down, peaceful. But hidden beneath that black glass, incredibly heavy, draining background applications are running frantically. Invisible lines of code are overheating the processor, silently bleeding the battery dry in the dark. That is exactly what the system has done to your energetic body. It has designed an architecture where your physical eyes may be closed in bed, but your vital essence is being actively siphoned away by an invisible frequency of survival mode that never actually shuts off. You are waking up completely drained because your life force is being stolen while you supposedly rest. But if your physical body is lying still and your inner battery is still violently bleeding out, we have to look at what happens the moment you actually step out of bed and begin to push forward. Because the energy you are losing isn't just vanishing into thin air, it is actively powering an invisible machinery right beneath your feet. The moment your feet touch the floor each morning, you do not step onto solid earth. You step onto an invisible, seamlessly running treadmill. The belt is already moving, humming with a cold, mechanical indifference, and you are forced to match its pace before your eyes are even fully open. For years, you have been fed a very specific, deeply ingrained lie. You have been taught to believe that your crushing exhaustion is a noble byproduct of forward momentum. You tell yourself that you are tired because you are doing important things, because you are building a future, because you are climbing a massive mountain of necessary tasks. But I want you to look very closely at the hidden architecture of your days. I want you to feel the agonizing repetition of your own footsteps. You are not climbing a mountain. You are simply running on a synthetic track designed to keep you permanently in place. Feel the brutal mechanics of this relentless motion. You pour a colossal amount of vital energy into the simple act of keeping up. You run at maximum capacity, your energetic heart pounding, your chest tight with the unspoken panic of falling behind the rhythm. You complete the cycles, you answer the demands, you handle the endless logistics of merely surviving another 24 hours. The day blurs past you, giving you the dizzying optical illusion of intense speed and genuine progress. But when the cycle temporarily pauses and the fog clears for just a fraction of a second, you look around and realize the terrifying truth. The landscape hasn't changed at all. You are standing in the exact same existential coordinates you were a year ago, 5 years ago, perhaps a decade ago. You have surrendered absolute gallons of your precious life force, you have worn out the ethereal cartilage of your spirit, and you have not moved a single inch forward. This is not a failure of your ability to plan, nor is it a lack of personal effort. This is the precise, flawless functionality of the system. The routine that suffocates your days was never designed to produce deep meaning, nor was it constructed to eventually lead you to a state of freedom. Its sole architectural purpose is to keep you perpetually occupied. The system thrives on your kinetic friction. It needs you to exert just enough physical and mental effort to stay balanced on the moving belt. Because a human being who is desperately out of breath, staring downward only at their own rapidly moving feet, simply does not have the residual energy or the spatial awareness to look up and question the validity of the machine itself. The cold reality is that your daily grind is mostly composed of empty effort. It is a series of manufactured urgencies created entirely to consume your energetic bandwidth. You are caught in a hypnotic loop of doing for the absolute sake of doing. It is a mechanical rhythm that numbs your higher consciousness through sheer, brute force repetition. The profound exhaustion you carry in your bones is the heavy, hollow ache of a powerful creator, realizing their immense life force is being burned as cheap fuel for a destination that does not exist. And the trap is so brilliantly constructed that it leads you to believe the only cure for this endless marathon is found in the brief moments when the treadmill supposedly halts. You are conditioned to think your salvation lies in those few, heavily guarded hours when you are finally allowed to step off the track, disengage and seek refuge in what you call your free time. But what actually awaits you in those quiet, unstructured spaces is perhaps the most violent deception of them all. Let us carefully examine the spaces you claim as your own. I'm talking about those quiet, unstructured gaps when you finally collapse onto your couch or retreat to your bed, seeking refuge. You call this your free time. You call this resting. But if we pull back the veil on what actually happens in these stolen moments, we uncover a psychological colonization so absolute that it defies comprehension. We have been fundamentally deceived into believing that distraction is a synonym for recovery. You have been led to believe that simply checking out and numbing your mind is the equivalent of recharging it. Imagine a traveler dragging themselves through a scorching, merciless desert, their throat cracked and bleeding, desperate for a single drop of hydration. They finally stumble upon a vast, shimmering ocean. Eagerly, they cup their hands and drink deeply, seeking salvation. But the water is impossibly heavy with salt. For a fleeting fraction of a second, there is the physical illusion of wetness on the tongue, a false momentary relief. Yet, almost immediately, the salt ravages their internal organs, actively pulling out whatever precious moisture remained in their cells, leaving them infinitely more dehydrated, dizzy, and desperate than before. This is exactly what you are doing to your fragile consciousness every single time you attempt to relax by staring into the infinite, glowing void of a screen. You think you are resting simply because your physical muscles are momentarily immobile, but behind your retinas, your brain is being subjected to a violent, relentless cognitive siege. You begin to scroll. You swipe. You absorb a burst of synthetic comedy, immediately followed by an agonizing global tragedy, instantly replaced by a fleeting trend, followed by a simulated angry debate. Your mind is violently whipped from one extreme emotional state to another in mere microseconds. Colors flash, fragmented voices overlap, texts blend into images, endless loops of completely disconnected information flood your delicate neurological pathways. You are forcing your exhausted mind to process thousands of microscopic decisions, judgments, and emotional reactions in the space of a single hour. Faster and faster the images blur. Faster and faster you drink the saltwater, desperately searching for the one specific drop of digital content that will finally soothe the agonizing mental ache, aggressively consuming the chaos just to drown out the terrifying prospect of your own silence. And then, you lock the screen. The room is suddenly quiet, but the damage is already done. You sit there and you notice the heavy, pulsing pressure settling deep behind your eyes. Your breathing is shallow. Your spirit feels scraped raw, profoundly hollowed out, and vastly more depleted than before you sat down. You sought a sanctuary, but you were handed a sensory overload cleverly disguised as a sedative. The system did not accidentally distract you. It purposely engineered an environment where true, empty silence feels unbearable. It colonized your leisure time to ensure that your cognitive processor never actually cools down in the dark. The system knows that in genuine, unmediated silence, your mind might heal, expand, and observe the invisible walls built around you. So it hands you a glowing glass of salt water and tells you to drink until you forget what actual rest feels like. But the ultimate tragedy of this endless consumption is not just the vital energy you lose to the glowing glass. It is the insidious transformation that occurs when you finally push the glass away. Because after years of being force-fed this relentless noise, the external bombardment eventually breaches your inner sanctum. The relentless, demanding voice no longer needs a screen or an external force to command your attention. The ultimate triumph of the system was never about building thicker walls around your physical body. It was far more insidious and brilliant than that. If the pressure to constantly perform only came from the outside, from a demanding schedule, a loud environment, or the glaring lights of a physical workplace, you would eventually recognize the threat and rebel. Human nature instinctively resists an obvious external cage. So, the architecture of control had to evolve. It had to cross the blood-brain barrier of your consciousness. It had to slip past your defenses like a psychological Trojan horse, quietly unloading its cargo in the deepest, most unguarded corridors of your mind while you were entirely distracted by the noise. I want you to slow down for a moment. Take a breath and bring your awareness to a very specific, claustrophobic reality. Think about the moments when you are completely alone, when there is no one around to monitor your movements, no immediate deadline on the horizon, and no external authority demanding your attention. Think about the simple act of taking a shower when the hot water is running over your tired shoulders. Think about a quiet drive on an empty street, or those agonizing, drawn-out minutes lying in bed, staring up at the dark ceiling. In those completely isolated spaces, a heavy, oppressive presence still sits tightly on your chest. An invisible whip cracks sharply in the air of your own mind, insisting that you plan, insisting that you optimize, insisting that you justify your existence through motion. But here is the most devastating revelation, the twist that drains the very marrow of your vitality. I want you to listen closely to the voice holding that whip. Really listen to its cadence, its tone, its specific frequency. It does not sound like a distant corporation. It does not sound like a cold, calculating machine or an angry authority figure. The absolute, terrifying perfection of the system is that this relentless, unforgiving voice sounds exactly like your own. You have been manipulated into swallowing the taskmaster whole. You absorbed the mechanical demands of the external world so deeply that they metastasized into your own internal monologue. You became the warden of your own neurological prison, diligently patrolling the halls of your own mind, shining a harsh, interrogating spotlight on any fleeting moment of stillness. You do not need the system to punish you for resting anymore, because you have been masterfully trained to violently punish yourself. Feel the agonizing, visceral weight of that internal betrayal. The deepest, most incurable exhaustion you carry in your bones is not from fighting the world outside. It is the soul-crushing fatigue of living inside a mind where the captive and the jailer are the exact same person. You are burning massive amounts of your precious life force every single second, playing both roles. You swing the whip and you flinch from the strike, trapped in a closed, suffocating loop of self-inflicted urgency that leaves you absolutely no room to simply exist. The cage is no longer a physical place. It is a portable, seamless enclosure, constructed of your own thought patterns. This means you can never just walk away from it. You could flee to the most remote, silent corner of the earth, completely untethered from modern society, and yet within minutes that familiar tightness would grip your throat. The internalized warden would clear its throat in the pure silence, pacing back and forth, demanding to know what you are accomplishing in this new environment. But what exactly is this voice constantly evaluating? What is the specific, crushing psychological tax it extracts from your spirit? A tax that paralyzes your energy, even when you are trying your hardest to do everything right. There is a silent, crushing currency that you are paying out every single second of your existence, even when you are standing perfectly still. It is a heavy, invisible debt that drains your vitality long before you have accomplished a single task. This absolute exhaustion you feel does not come from the physical actions you take. It is born from the brutal, grinding friction of a psychological phantom tax. It is the devastating tax of the words, "I should." Every morning before the sun even fully rises, you open your eyes and instantly inherit a massive deficit. You wake up already owing the world a highly optimized, flawless version of yourself that simply does not exist. A heavy, iron chain of expectations wraps tightly around your chest. You tell yourself, I should be more emotionally balanced, I should be eating cleaner, I should be evolving faster, I should be more enlightened. You have constructed a towering, idealized avatar of who you are supposed to be, and every single moment you spend, as your actual beautifully flawed human self feels like a painful, unforgivable failure. The space between who you are right now and who you believe you should be is a dark, echoing chasm, and you are burning agonizing amounts of your pure life force just staring into that void, feeling the chronic ache of inadequacy. This is not a natural human condition. It is a masterstroke of the system. The system feeds endlessly on your sense of lack. If you ever felt entirely whole, if you ever truly believed that you were enough exactly as you breathe in this very moment, a massive portion of the control grid would instantly collapse. So it weaponizes your own desire for growth against you. It convinces you that your current state of being is a problem waiting to be solved, keeping you in a permanent state of energetic deficit. You carry this crushing weight everywhere. It lives in the tightness of your jaw, in the shallow breaths you take, and in the quiet, heartbreaking apologies you whisper to yourself for simply being human. But the most devastating cruelty of this phantom tax is what it has done to your pursuit of peace. The dictatorship of optimization has completely corrupted your sanctuary. Think about the things you supposedly do to heal. Think about the routines of self-care you force upon yourself. Even your attempts at recovery have been infected by the poison of obligation. You try to meditate, but you sit there with clenched teeth, judging yourself for having thoughts, turning silence into a performance metric. You read books on inner peace, but you read them with a metaphorical gun to your head, desperately trying to aggressively consume serenity. Healing is no longer a gentle return to yourself. It has become just another exhausting chore on an endless list of things you should be doing. You are carrying a backpack filled with lead, and you are trying to heal your aching spine by adding more beautifully decorated stones to the load. You have been paying this agonizing mental tax for so long that your spirit is completely bankrupt. The sheer effort of trying to sustain this illusion of perfection has worn your soul down to the bone. You reach a point of absolute crushing despair where the burden becomes so heavy that your knees buckle. You finally decide that you can no longer carry the weight. You decide to drop the heavy armor, lay down and do absolutely nothing at all. But when you finally attempt to surrender to that emptiness, something dark and biological violently intervenes. Picture this exact surgically precise moment in your life. You finally manage to clear a small window in your schedule. The room is quiet. You lie back on the couch, close your eyes, and make a conscious, deliberate decision to just be, to do absolutely nothing. And then within minutes, sometimes within mere seconds, the agonizing rebellion begins. A subtle, irritating vibration starts at the base of your neck. Your chest tightens as if an invisible weight has just been dropped on your ribs. Your breathing becomes inexplicably shallow, and a cold, creeping sensation of dread begins to pool deep in your stomach. You try to force your muscles to uncoil, but your physical body actively resists your command. It feels as though a low-voltage electrical current is buzzing just beneath your skin, demanding motion. Suddenly, an overwhelming wave of guilt crashes over your consciousness, immediately followed by a sharp, suffocating spike of pure anxiety. You feel an intense, irrational certainty that you are forgetting something critical, that some invisible catastrophe is unfolding just out of sight simply because you are not actively standing guard. You desperately wanted peace. You carved out the time for it, but instead, you find yourself trapped in a sudden, violent ambush from your own biology. Listen to me very closely, because understanding this dynamic is a matter of profound energetic survival. This terrifying reaction is not a lack of focus. It is not a failure of your ability to relax or meditate. What you are experiencing in that agonizing moment on the couch is a literal physiological withdrawal syndrome. Your nervous system has been forcibly addicted to the high-voltage frequencies of urgency, cortisol, and adrenaline. The system has rigorously conditioned your biology over decades to equate constant grinding motion with basic survival. If this somatic reality resonates with the deeply hidden, silent struggles of your daily life, I want you to pause with me for just a second. Drop the words "I am safe in the stillness" in the comments below. Let this be a physical anchor, a quiet signal to your own mind and to this community that you are beginning to recognize the illusion. And if you feel deeply understood in this safe, observant space we are creating together, consider subscribing to the channel. We are untangling these heavy, invisible threads side by side, and you do not have to do this alone. Returning to that moment of forced rest, you must realize what the architecture of your brain is actually doing to you. When you suddenly attempt to stop, the abrupt drop in stress hormones deeply confuses your heavily conditioned neurology. Because it has been trained by the relentless pace of the system to believe that survival requires constant friction, your brain interprets the sudden silence and absolute physical relaxation as a literal death threat. Your primal alarm starts screaming in the dark, firing off agonizing flares of panic to force you back up onto your feet. It actively punishes you for stopping because it genuinely believes that if you are not running, you are in mortal danger. You are not failing to rest. You are fighting a severe chemical dependency on your own exhaustion. But this intense biological alarm system does not just trigger when you lie down in a quiet room. It is constantly being fed, constantly kept on a razor-thin edge by an even heavier, more suffocating burden you carry throughout your waking hours. It is an exhaustion born not from what you are actively doing, but from the brutal, unyielding calculation of who you are constantly pretending to be. Beneath the biological alarms and the heavy, phantom debts of expectation, there lies the most profound, silent drain on your energetic reserves. I want you to feel the physical weight of what you are doing right now, even as you simply listen to these words. Notice your jaw. Notice the subtle, chronic tension in your shoulders, the way you hold your spine, the microscopic ways you are rigidly composing yourself. You are perpetually editing who you are. The true root of your deep, inescapable exhaustion is the relentless, unbroken performance of normalcy. You are bleeding pure vitality not through your tangible actions, but through the continuous, suffocating curation of your own identity. Every single day you step into the world and immediately put on a heavy, suffocating mask of efficiency and composure. You calculate the exact pitch of your voice so as not to sound too tired or too fragile. You arrange your facial features into a socially acceptable, rigid geometry of pleasantness. You actively suppress the natural, chaotic tides of your actual emotions because the system demands a flat, predictable, and easily digestible version of your existence. It takes a colossal, unimaginable amount of energetic bandwidth to continuously bend your authentic frequency into a shape that pleases the invisible tribunal of society. You are constantly monitoring yourself from the outside, acting as both the scrutinized subject and the harsh, unforgiving judge. Imagine the sheer physical agony of trying to live your normal life while holding up a massive, thick suit of lead armor with just one hand. You are trying to drink your morning coffee, have conversations, and navigate your complex day, all while your unseen muscles are screaming, trembling violently under the crushing weight of this heavy metal facade. And here is the most agonizing, heartbreaking part of this reality. You are performing this exhausting, desperate act on the stage of an entirely empty theater. There is no one actually watching you with the level of intense, critical scrutiny you imagine. The tribunal is a ghost. You are pouring oceans of your precious life force into projecting an illusion of flawless control to an audience of shadows. Yet you are so terrified of dropping the lead armor, so deeply afraid of what might happen if you let the facade slip and reveal your fatigue, that you keep holding it up until your spirit simply collapses from the strain. This hypervigilance is a ravenous, energetic parasite. It demands that you constantly scan your environment, anticipating exactly how you will be perceived, pre-rehearsing conversations that haven't even happened, and aggressively policing your own spontaneous reactions. The tragic reality is that even when you are entirely alone, sitting in your parked car or lying silently in the dark, the mask remains tightly glued to your skin. The system has trained you so masterfully that you continue to perform the role of the well-adjusted individual, even when there is absolutely no one around to witness it. You have become terrified of your own unedited shape. I want you to just feel the brutal, heavy exhaustion of this endless theater. Allow yourself, right in this very second, to feel how incredibly tired you are of pretending. Feel the deep, aching soreness in the hidden muscles of your soul. You can let your shoulders drop now. It is absolutely okay to admit that the sheer, continuous effort of appearing fine is destroying you. The heavy armor has worn your emotional bones down to dust. But as you finally allow yourself to recognize the staggering magnitude of this invisible performance, a new, profoundly sorrowful realization begins to wash over your consciousness. Because once the theater lights come on and you see how much of your vital energy has been poured out onto an empty stage, there is a very specific, deeply uncomfortable sensation that washes over you the exact moment you truly see this illusion for what it is. It is a profound, dizzying vertigo. Imagine that for your entire existence, you have been trapped inside a massive, high-speed train hurtling through the dark. The noise was absolutely deafening. The floor beneath your feet was constantly shaking, and you were forced to sprint down the narrow aisles, frantically carrying heavy cargo from one end to the other, terrified of what would happen if you ever lost your balance. And then suddenly the doors pry open, and you step off onto a quiet, desolate platform. The violent wind instantly dies down. The deafening roar fades into a haunting, heavy silence. You stand there, completely motionless on the cold concrete, and you look back at the blur of metal still tearing relentlessly through the night. In this abrupt, jarring stillness, a bitter reality finally catches up to you. When the artificial adrenaline leaves your bloodstream and the blinding speed of the system no longer distorts your vision, you are hit with the crushing physical weight of a very specific grief. It is the silent, solitary mourning of your own wasted vitality. For the very first time, you can clearly measure the sheer volume of pure, irretrievable life force you unknowingly handed over to an absolute mirage. You remember the years you spent agonizing over fabricated milestones, the sleepless nights dedicated to proving your worth to an invisible tribunal, and the staggering emotional currency you paid into a machine that gave you nothing but chronic fatigue in return. Most people, and certainly the architects of modern productivity, will tell you that the moment you realize you have been walking in the wrong direction, you must immediately reframe it into something positive. They will rush to offer you toxic optimism, demanding that you look on the bright side, that you use this sudden awakening to instantly optimize your new path forward. But I am not going to do that to you. I am not going to insult the profound depth of your lived experience with cheap, hollow platitudes. I want to give you the ultimate, socially forbidden permission to simply stand on this quiet platform and mourn. It is entirely valid to feel a deep, aching sadness for the beautiful energy you poured into a void. It is necessary to feel the heavy, melancholic ache in your chest as you look at your own hands and realize how long they were forced to build an empty empire. Allow this grief to physically settle in your bones. Feel the agonizing, somatic sting of this revelation. You surrendered your brightest focus, your physical endurance, and your most tender emotional bandwidth to a system that treated your divine consciousness like a disposable, cheap battery. It is a devastating, incredibly lonely realization. You look around, and the world feels stark and motionless. A cold, heavy truth wraps around your shoulders. You can never get those years of blind, frantic exertion back. The energy has been spent, absorbed by the relentless gears of society. As you stand there in the dark, bearing the full, unfiltered weight of this hollow emptiness, watching the train rush by, filled with millions of other asleep, exhausted souls, a completely natural, fiercely human instinct begins to rise in your chest. The initial shock of your grief slowly begins to harden into a desperate, burning urge to do something about it. When the heavy grief of realizing you have been drained finally settles, a new, incredibly fierce sensation typically ignites in the center of your chest. It is a sudden, violently burning desire to rebel. You look around at the sleepwalking masses. You clearly see the invisible architecture that has been quietly stealing your vitality for years, and your immediate, desperate biological instinct is to go to war. You want to grab the people you love by the shoulders and forcefully shake them awake. You want to scream into the void, to aggressively argue with the endless demands placed upon you, to fiercely push back against the crushing expectations of the world. You feel a massive, dizzying surge of adrenaline, and for a fleeting second, this blazing anger feels like absolute power. It feels like you are finally taking back your sovereignty. But I must warn you right now with the utmost urgency, because you are standing on the dangerous edge of a devastating trap. I need you to listen to me very carefully and absorb this tactical truth. Direct, aggressive friction is not a path to freedom. It is merely the system changing the flavor of your anxiety. The machine does not care if you are running on its treadmill with a forced, polite smile, or if you are running on it while screaming in bitter protest. As long as you are exerting intense emotional energy, as long as you are locked in violent friction with its mechanics, your battery is still being actively drained. The system feeds on your desperate outrage just as ravenously as it feeds on your quiet compliance. Imagine yourself standing furiously before a towering, endless wall of deep water. You are so fiercely angry at this obstacle, so deeply offended by its presence, that you pull back your fist and punch the surface with all of your remaining might. What happens? The water simply swallows your strike. It absorbs the violent kinetic force without a single scratch. Frustrated, you hit it again, harder this time. You start swinging wildly, thrashing your arms, kicking, screaming at the fluid wall to break. Your lungs begin to burn. Your muscles scream in absolute trembling agony. You are pouring every last ounce of your recently reclaimed vitality into this violent resistance, slowly drowning in the chaotic waves of your own making, while the wall of water remains entirely undisturbed, coldly indifferent to your exhaustion. This is exactly what happens when you try to fight the structure head-on, or when you frantically try to save those who are not ready to wake up. When you attempt to violently rip the heavy masks off the people around you, you will quickly find that they will fiercely defend their own exhaustion. They will fight you to protect their chains, because the familiar illusion is all they know. And in that desperate attempt to be a savior, in that agonizing friction of trying to force awareness onto an unready world, you will completely bleed out the tiny reserve of energy you just managed to locate. Your chest will tighten again, your jaw will clench with a new kind of bitterness, and you will find yourself right back in the dark, entirely depleted, carrying a different narrative of suffering. True rebellion does not make a sound. You must ruthlessly protect your energy from the magnetic, seductive pull of outrage. You must become deeply tactical, conserving your precious light instead of throwing it at shadows. Because the absolute, irreversible destruction of the machine's grip on your mind does not happen in a blazing moment of external combat. The real fracture happens quietly in the middle of the day, when the external world attempts its usual tricks, and something entirely unexpected happens within your own biology. The profound fracture of this entire illusion does not happen where you think it does. Your absolute liberation from the grinding exhaustion of the world will not occur on the silent peak of a distant mountain, nor will it happen during a deep, perfectly curated meditation retreat. The irreversible moment the gear permanently breaks inside your mind happens on a completely random, unremarkable afternoon, right in the dead center of the chaos. The external world will attempt its usual tricks. A sudden manufactured crisis will drop right into your lap. An urgent deadline will flash before your eyes. A heavy societal expectation will be placed heavily on your shoulders, or the chaotic noise of external demands will reach a deafening crescendo. You have lived this exact high-pressure scenario thousands of times before, and historically, this is the precise fraction of a second when your biology would fiercely betray you. This is when the cortisol would flood your veins, your chest would tighten, and you would instinctively start running on the invisible treadmill to survive the dread. But this time, something incredibly strange and fiercely beautiful occurs. You stand there looking at the impending crisis, and you wait for the familiar agonizing spike of panic to hit your bloodstream. You wait for the dread. You wait for the heavy armor of performance to snap onto your body. And yet, nothing happens. Your nervous system remains completely, terrifyingly still. A profound, echoing silence washes over your entire biological response. The invisible whip cracks loudly in the air right next to your ear, but your emotional flesh does not flinch in the slightest. You are staring directly at the manufactured emergency, and your heart continues to beat at a slow, deep, and perfectly sovereign resting pace. Imagine that for your entire existence, you have been forced to sit in a pitch-black room, watching a terrifying, blood-curdling horror movie. The sudden jump scares, the shadows, the deafening, suspenseful music, it all hijacked your nervous system, keeping you in a perpetual state of trembling fear. But in this singular, quietly revolutionary moment of your life, someone has suddenly flipped on the bright overhead lights and put the television entirely on mute. You are still looking directly at the screen. The monster is still jumping out from the shadows, roaring aggressively, waving its arms to intimidate you. The movie is desperately trying to execute its intended function, but the terror is completely and absolutely gone. Without the manipulative, heavy soundtrack, without the artificial darkness forcing your focus, you suddenly see the cheap rubber suit of the monster. You see the clumsy, fragile wires suspending the illusion from the ceiling. You watch the frantic, desperate attempts of the scene trying to make you scream, and all you feel is a cold, victorious clarity. This is the permanent death of your manipulation. It is a very specific, deeply liberating loss of innocence, because once you see the cheap mechanics of the fear, you can never unsee them. The system is still spinning its frantic, exhausting gears all around you, demanding your panic, but you have fundamentally lost the capacity to be scared by it. The internalized warden inside your head screams for you to worry, and for the first time in your life, you simply observe it like a harmless, passing cloud. You do not argue with the screen. You do not fight the monster. You just sit in the bright light, untouchable, breathing in a radiant, victorious lightness. Your mind has fully reclaimed its throne, but this state of absolute, sovereign observation brings us to a critical threshold. Now that the horror movie is playing on mute, how do you permanently command this state within your physical body without ever fighting back? To permanently command this sovereign state within your physical body, you must fundamentally unlearn the deepest, most ingrained reflex of your survival instinct. Your immediate impulse upon realizing you are being drained by your own anxiety is to fiercely fight back. You attempt to build a massive psychological shield. You try to forcefully push the panic away, to aggressively wrestle the heavy shadows into submission, demanding that your mind be quiet. But I need you to completely abandon this strategy right now, because a shield still requires a heavy, exhausted arm to hold it up. Wrestling the dark still requires you to burn your precious vitality. If you are actively fighting your exhaustion, if you are judging your own anxiety, you are still creating friction. And where there is friction, you are still bleeding energy. The ultimate antidote, the absolute mastery over your inner domain, is found in the profound, quiet physics of non-resistance. I want you to bring your awareness into the center of your mind and visualize a massive, brutal game of tug-of-war. In your hands, you are gripping a thick, coarse rope. The heavy fibers are tearing into your raw palms. You are pulling backward with absolutely everything you have. Your heels are violently dug into the dirt. Your spine is aching, your muscles are trembling, and your teeth are ground together in pure agony. On the other side of this rope, shrouded in the dark, is the relentless, towering mass of your conditioned nervous system and the manufactured urgencies of the world. It is pulling fiercely, violently, trying to drag you into the chaos, trying to force you into a state of panic. For years, you believed that survival meant holding onto this rope at all costs. You deeply believed that the system demanded this violent kinetic struggle, and that if you stopped pulling, you would be instantly destroyed. But here is the ultimate, life-altering secret of the pure observer. The monstrous force on the other side of the rope is entirely reliant on your resistance to exist. It has no actual mass of its own. It only possesses the exact amount of tension that you willingly provide. So right here, right now, in the quiet floating sanctuary of your own consciousness, I want you to simply open your hands. Do not pull. Do not push. Do not try to reason with the rope. Just let it go. Feel the profound, staggering, slow-motion release as your tight fingers finally uncurl. In an instant, the heavy, coarse fibers slip smoothly from your grip. Without your active resistance, the colossal, agonizing tension in the line instantly collapses. The terrifying, heavy force on the other side violently loses its balance, falling backward into the absolute void, rendered completely powerless because it no longer has your precious energy to pull against. Notice the immediate, overwhelming rush of liquid relief flooding the architecture of your physical body. The burning in your muscles ceases, the violent trembling completely stops. Your breathing deepens, expanding your chest with cool, clear space. You are no longer bracing for an impact. You are no longer providing a hard surface for the anxiety to strike. You have become entirely transparent to the panic. The heavy frequencies of fear might still swirl around you in the abstract dark, trying desperately to find a hook, but there is absolutely nothing left within you for them to grab onto. By stepping out of the fight, by completely dropping the judgment of your own condition. The staggering, colossal energy expenditure of your daily defense mechanism drops perfectly to zero. You are now resting gracefully in the pristine sanctuary of non-friction. You are simply observing the turbulent weather, without offering it a single drop of your participation. Your vital battery is finally sealed, humming with a quiet, undisturbed, and infinite power. Yet this magnificent floating liberation cannot remain confined only to the formless realm of your closed eyes. Eventually you have to stand up, open your physical eyes, and navigate the heavy, demanding gravity of the material plane. When you finally open your physical eyes and step back into the dense, demanding reality of the material world, there is a dangerous spiritual myth you must immediately discard. We are often sold the highly romanticized idea that to truly preserve your mental energy and live in peace, you must completely abandon modern society. You are told that enlightenment requires selling all your possessions, moving to a silent, isolated cabin in the mountains, and severing all ties with the demanding, chaotic world. But let us be fiercely grounded in reality for a moment. You have responsibilities. You have bills to pay. You have people who depend on you. And you have a life deeply embedded in the tangible, concrete grid of the city. You cannot simply vanish. And the profound, beautiful truth is, you absolutely do not have to. Escaping the physical coordinates of your life is just another form of resistance, another exhausting attempt to outrun the system. True liberation does not demand that you change your external environment. It only demands that you completely eliminate your internal friction. Tomorrow morning, the sun will rise, and your alarm clock will sound with the exact same harsh electronic tone. The laundry will still need to be folded, the emails will still flood your inbox, and you will still have to sit in the same congested, loud traffic on your way to fulfill your daily obligations. The system has not magically evaporated. The heavy, grinding machinery of the world is still churning relentlessly all around you. People will still rush past you with panic in their eyes. The demands will still be placed on your desk, and the chaotic noise of urban existence will continue to echo off the concrete walls. Your external reality remains entirely, beautifully ordinary. What has radically and permanently altered is the physical mechanics of how you move through it. Imagine that for your entire adult life, you've been driving down a chaotic, heavily congested avenue. The noise is deafening, other drivers are swerving aggressively, and you have been pressing the gas pedal all the way to the floor just to keep up. But the entire time, without even realizing it, you have been driving with the emergency handbrake pulled all the way up. The engine was screaming, the brake pads were smoking, and the entire vehicle was vibrating violently, burning catastrophic amounts of fuel just to inch forward. Your physical body was absorbing all of that violent, mechanical shuddering. That agonizing, burning effort is what living with internal friction feels like. But now, through the quiet power of non-resistance you just mastered, you have finally reached down and released that brake. You are still driving the exact same car. You are still navigating the exact same chaotic avenue. The external traffic has not cleared at all, but suddenly the vehicle simply glides. The agonizing, vibrating effort required to move forward drops instantly to zero. You are sitting in a fluorescent-lit meeting room, and instead of internalizing the stress in the room as a biological threat to your survival, you sit back and hear the demands purely as harmless sound waves. You stand at the sink washing a towering pile of dishes, and instead of the chore feeling like a heavy, resentful punishment from a life you feel you are failing at, it is just warm water, soap, and porcelain. The task becomes purely kinetic. Without the phantom tax of judgment and urgency, the mundane chores of your existence stop devouring your life force. You can feel your shoulders resting low and relaxed, even while sitting in gridlocked traffic. You are fully present in the matrix, completing every necessary human function, but you are operating on a completely frictionless frequency. You are walking the same pavement, breathing the same city air, but your battery is no longer leaking into the asphalt. But as you navigate this loud, frantic world with this newly untethered energy, a final, magnificent transformation takes place in how the chaos physically interacts with your body. You have stepped into the ultimate paradox. You still exist within the exact same world, and the gears of society are still spinning violently all around you. The rush, the demands, and the deafening noise of the system continue their frantic orbit, but they have permanently lost all jurisdiction over your heart. Imagine walking steadily through the center of a roaring storm, yet you are moving beneath an impenetrable dome of thick, tempered glass. The chaos rains down violently. The heavy blades of external stress are still spinning just inches from your face, but they strike nothing but the absolute void. You watch the storm, but you do not get wet. You have become the untouchable observer. Your vital energy now belongs entirely and exclusively to you. Your internal battery is perfectly sealed. You are walking through the loud, demanding matrix, yet you are operating on a frequency of pure, frictionless silence. This is your absolute mental emancipation. To anchor this sovereign frequency, and let me know you made it to the very end of this journey with me, type the words, "My energy is sealed," in the comments below. If this resonance brought you clarity, and you want more content like this, click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now to dive deeper into this truth. And if you wish to actively support this channel and gain access to exclusive content, consider becoming a member today. Walk in peace, forever shielded by your own stillness.